Good morning. Today I want to talk about the fight, flight, or freeze response. And many of us think we understand it, but let's just break it down quickly so that we can all know exactly what we're talking about when we talk about fight, flight, or freeze, because this keeps us sick, this keeps us racked with chronic illness and chronic pain and chronic symptoms and chronic suffering, right? Chronic disease. So what is fight, flight, or freeze? So fight is a natural, they're all biological responses, right, to something that's going on in the environment. So again, the most basic example is if you're out in the woods and you're being chased by a bear, say, or a tiger, whatever you want to say. You come up against something in nature, and if your body believes that you can run away from it, that's the first option. It will always choose to take the easiest course of action, which is to flee, which is to run away. So that's the flight, right? Is to just get away from it, okay? That's the very first thing, because your body doesn't want to fight, and it basically just wants to stay safe. So your body is trying to always protect you and keep you safe. And the first reaction, if anything, is when you come up against something that's overwhelming, or seems too big, or seems scary, or seems like it's going to hurt you in any way, the first reaction is to flee. So just to get away. If you think that you can beat it, if you feel like it's coming towards you, if you feel like you're under attack in any way, and you're stronger than it, if your body, so you don't decide this consciously, your body decides this. So your subconscious makes it a quick decision. I'm strong enough to fight this. I may not be able to get away, but I'm strong enough to fight this. And if that's what your subconscious perceives as okay, then it will fight. It will take on the battle. It will fight against it. It will try to survive, which is what it's doing. So if it feels it can, then it will do that. Talk about fight or flight. That dog barking just scared me. See how quickly it happens? It happens within a second. You don't decide it. It decides for you. And then I look and I notice the size of the dog and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I don't even need to run. I can just walk away. No problem. So, but if it had been a huge dog, I might have started to move faster away. And if it had been something really scary, like a wolf or a coyote, I might have ran. Or it might have come close enough to me fast enough that I realized I had to fight. And so then my body would make that decision for me, and it would begin to fight instead of run away. Okay, so that's just biological. So now, breaking it down even further, what is the freeze response? So the freeze response is the most undesirable response. It's the last resort for the body. Let's put it that way. But it has helped in biology, back in history, back in human history. This is an important response because it also helps to protect and survive people. So have you ever seen the animals in nature? They're being chased, they're running, or they're fighting or whatever, and then they just fall down and play dead. Okay, this is when the body completely, so it's a subconscious choice. Again, it's not a conscious choice. And the body thinks, I can't run. I am not going to be fast enough to get away from this. I'm not strong enough. I will not be able to fight this. And a decision happens in your subconscious and it says, I need to freeze. And so you will pass out. You will play dead. You will literally freeze in your tracks. You've seen animals do that. They look like they're dead. You think they're dead. And then the danger goes away and the animal pops up and runs away. Right? That is the biological freeze response. And it keeps people safe until they're out of enough danger that the person can fight or flee again, right? They can't stay there indefinitely. Freeze doesn't work indefinitely, but it works. It works in nature to get you out of that situation where you're not going to be okay. So that's the body's last resort, the subconscious, when it feels you're not going to be okay. It puts you in a freeze. Okay, a total biological freeze. Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's just figure out how our ancient brain plays this out in today's modern world. So you're not really going to be in a position of battle or running for your life from a tiger, but your brain still has those three impulses, fight, fight, or freeze, right? So it can show up in big or small ways, right? You can freeze or flee or fight for many things, right? Little annoyances throughout the day, something that you're worried about, social media. It can show up for public speaking. It can show up for, getting on an airplane, getting on a flight. It can show up for all kinds of different ways. Talking about things that make us uncomfortable, certain kinds of phobias, whatever it is. Even just being upset by things going wrong in your life or an argument that you just had with a family member. So these responses, because our ancient brain is set up for survival. But when we have these emotions that feel painful to us, our brain kicks in that response. So our subconscious begins to, put us in fight, flight, or freeze responses for everyday things. So you may find yourself, having an anxiety attack and you're in full freeze mode, right? Or in an argument with somebody and you're in total fight mode, or you're worried about something coming up and you're in total flee mode. You're running from it, right? So these things, our brain's not very good at distinguishing in today's modern age. You have pain and your body's in total freak out, fight mode, right? Or flee mode or freeze. So freeze can show up in a number of different ways in your body. You can literally pass out. Your body can totally shut you right down, right? Coma is the biggest number one thing. You could be in a coma. Your body's like, I'm done. I'm out. This is way too stressful. We're going to totally take you completely offline, right? Passing out, right? Feeling numb. Having your limbs lock up. Feeling frozen, right? Your body, your muscles are completely tense and feel locked. It's another way, right? You can feel all these feelings for freeze. You can also feel feelings of dissociation, right? And that's, our body's trying to protect us. So when we're dissociating from something, it's like the pain's too intense, the anxiety's too intense, whatever's happening is too intense. So our body, instead of passing us out or putting us in a coma, or locking up our limbs, it may dissociate you. So it's just a natural way that your body says, this is too intense and I'm going to try to keep the pain and your world separate. So I'm going to dissociate you from one another. That's another way that you can be in freeze response. But however your body chooses to put you in freeze response, it's the same, right? It's just a way that your body's trying to keep you safe. So it's nothing to be angry at your body for. It's nothing to feel frightened about. This is natural and normal, and your body's actually helping you. It thinks it's helping you. The problem is it can really start to mess up your life when you're in the modern age and, it's keeping you from people and things that you actually want in your life. So I want you to remember that your brain puts you in freeze to protect you. So although freeze can be embarrassing and it can be so uncomfortable and you can feel like you're completely out of control, because you are. Your biological body has taken over and your thinking mind, it has shut it down. And that's why we feel so out of control when we're in moments of freeze. We feel like we don't have control over our body or our minds. Our minds and bodies are separate. We're not able to, a lot of people who experience anxiety, for example, are often in freeze responses and they feel so uncomfortable and so scared by the fact that their body is doing things that their mind is not. Their body and their mind aren't in sync. Now, if you can remember that this is biological and this is supposed to happen like this, right? Your body takes over and it shuts your mind down. It keeps them separate because it doesn't want your mind thinking anymore. It wants your body to literally shut down, be helpless, play dead, right? Freeze. And this is the way that we escape danger. This is the way that the body is overriding your thinking, overriding your ability to function and control your own body. And it's keeping you safe and it's saying, I've got this now. Let go. And it's a very scary feeling. It's a very helpless feeling. We can often feel embarrassed or judged or crazy or completely wrong when we're in a state of freeze. It can often feel like we won't be understood because we can't even understand ourselves because our body is doing something. It's acting in a way that we have no control over. Okay, so this happens with anxiety. It happens with grief. It happens when you're in self-protection mode. And it happens with pain too. What happens is you're no longer in control. The body's writing the checks here. The body has determined that you're no longer able to fight or flee and you need to do something else, and the only thing left that your biology has to contribute is freeze, okay? And it often keeps people in the past and animals in the wild, biologically, it can keep you safe. But the problem is you can't stay frozen indefinitely. Every animal knows when the danger has passed, they've got to get up and make a run for it, or they've got to get up and fight back, right? They can't stay there forever, or they will get eaten, they will die. Problem is, we don't sense. We, as people who have chronic illness or chronic pain or chronic symptoms, don't ever sense when the danger is behind us. Therefore, we never get on with getting through the freeze response and back into fight or back into flight and back getting away from it and back to safety, which is ultimately what you want to do. So, but when you're stuck in freeze, you're really stuck in death, right? Because if there's no way out of freeze, it's not helping you anymore. Freeze only helps for a short period of time. Just think in nature, right? The animal that falls down and pretends that they're dead, when the tiger's over them and they lose interest and they go away, and then the animal has to get up and run and go back to its natural life, right? So, or it has to pounce, when the person least expects it. You see that with cats or other things, right? So when you're stuck in freeze indefinitely, this is where the problem is. This is the problem of chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic anxiety, chronic pain, chronic everything. You're stuck. You're stuck in freeze. So you have to understand freeze and what it is and what it is not. So I hope I've done a good job of explaining it. If not, go back and watch it again. Really understand what freeze is, why it's happening, and now we can talk about what to do about it. Okay, so now that we understand what exactly freeze is, we fully understand that we can't not think our way out of a freeze response. So trying to be logical and coming up with a plan to get out of freeze is not going to work. You can't do it. Biologically, it's not possible, okay? So we have to try to get out of our frozen responses to these traumas and these events and these traumatic symptoms and everything that is going on in our life. We have to find another way than thinking our way out of it. And the best way is through the body itself. So it's kind of going in the back door and not going through our brain, not going through, how we would normally solve a problem, but going in through the back door and solving it through our body itself, because it's the body that's actually doing the response right now. It's actually in freeze. So we want to talk to the body directly. The brain, biologically, you cannot solve it through your brain. So just let go of that. Let go of that. Be okay with that. So chronic freeze is usually about chronic trauma. So it's often a past or a present trauma that we're experiencing in some way that's keeping us stuck and frozen, right? So this is why trauma work is all about people being in freeze, right? Trauma is being in freeze. Chronic illness, chronic pain is being in freeze, okay? This is where you are. You're stuck. Right? You're not able to break out of the pattern. And your body is constantly keeping you safe. It's constantly working for you, but it's now working against you because you've been in this state for too long. We need to break out of it. We need to break out of freeze. So how do we do that? The first thing we do is when we're trying to process a trauma or a feeling that we're having, first we want to recognize what that is. Like, I'm so sad. I feel so lonely, so sad. Whatever it is, just allow yourself to feel what it is you're feeling. Empty or sad or lonely or heartbroken. Okay, if you're feeling that, but you're telling me or you're telling yourself, like you're telling the person, like, I feel so sad. I feel so sad my partner died. I feel so sad that I've been sick for 10 years. I'm missing my child's, my whole life, right? That way I just told you is like, oh, I'm so sad about this thing, right? But no, you are sad about this thing. What does somebody do who is heartbroken over something? They cry, they wail, right? But you're frozen, you're sad, right? You're heartbroken, but you're not feeling that emotion. So you're stuck in freeze, right? Let's take that to a different example. You can say, oh, I'm so angry they did that. I'm so angry. It's so wrong that they did that. It infuriates me. It totally ruined my life. That person did that and it was so wrong. I hope they go to jail. It infuriated my life. Okay, you're telling a story again that is, when someone is that angry, when someone is that infuriated, is that filled with rage, they need to scream. You need to move your body, right? You need to think about what a person who's actually experiencing rage does. Maybe they throw things, they break things, they move, they stomp, they scream, right? They feel this emotion. Same with somebody in grief. They roll up into a ball, into the fetal position, and they rock themselves and they cry and they weep, right? So I'm not saying that in public you're going to start to do these things because, yeah, that's why you're frozen, because you can't literally do that in society. It's not cool to express your emotions like that. So therefore your body's in a freeze because it knows it can't express it. But we need to work through this trauma in a safe way. So first you need to get into a safe place with a safe person, a therapist, a trusted family member, a friend, somebody, yourself, with journal work on the page. It may be you're all alone in a little cottage with just your pen and your paper and yourself. When you're safe, we need to now remind the body that we're safe to feel. So what does that look like? It looks like not holding it in anymore, not holding in grief, heartbreak, sadness, loneliness. It looks like not holding in anger, rage, frustration, jealousy. It looks like not holding in primal emotions. It looks like expressing them. So the first thing that we can do is, if someone's angry, maybe we start to, when we're talking about this and we're like, I'm so angry, whatever, or we're journaling about it, or we're expressing it to a therapist. Yeah, we're angry. We might be getting a little worked up in our voice. Our voice might be getting a little bit more frustrated or angry, but that's still not expressing. That's still not expressing. So we need to express through the body. So the first thing we might do is like pat our knees as we're talking, stomp our feet, clap our hands, right? Start to be more animated, talk. Like you might have to talk as you're clapping, as you're stomping, as you're moving, standing up, moving your arms, getting animated, jumping. Okay, these are ways that we work ourselves into feeling the feelings, the emotions that are stuck associated with the anger or the trauma that we're talking about. If it's grief or heartbreak or sadness, right, that we're talking about, we may need to sit curled up with our feet, curled up like this on a bench, curled up, snuggled up with our feet. We need to maybe lay down in the fetal position, start to rock the way someone would if they were weeping, right? Eventually, we're going to work ourselves and allow ourselves to cry, to sob. And when through the angry, maybe we're going to allow ourselves to scream, to punch a punching bag or a pillow, to literally throw something, to feel through this, okay? And then, once our body's unstuck, once that emotion through our body, not through our mind, becomes unstuck, we can go back then and talk about the event and we use our mind. Now we can use our mind to process through it. But we can't use our mind to process through it until we've used our body to allow ourselves to express those primal feelings and emotions that we have about the event. So just talking about it plainly, journaling about it plainly, but keeping everything in and keeping looking cool and collected to the outside world is not really helping you get through freeze. So maybe you have a therapist, maybe you have one person, your spouse, maybe you have to do this completely alone in an empty house, but you must. And this is why trauma work, there's a lot of things like EMDR work, there's a lot of things like TRE. If you haven't watched my video on TRE, which is trauma release exercises, go ahead and watch that, or other ways to release trauma, like screaming, yawning, laughing. So we engage the body to release what we're holding. So that is one way that we get unstuck, right? Is literally you have to come in through the back door and cause the body, as we're talking or thinking about the trauma or the pain or the symptoms or the event or the the fear or the whatever it is, we're going to allow ourselves to our body to express ourselves in whatever natural biological way it needs to. If it's fear, you're afraid of something, you have a phobia of something, something is causing you great fear, you have total anxiety meltdowns, your body may start to go numb, and you may have to pat yourself, feel yourself, yes, I'm here, pinch yourself, I'm here, right? You want to come back to your body. You may have to roll around on the ground, get low, get cold, get on the earth. These are some primal biological responses that people do as they come out of fear, as they come out of freeze, right? Animals on the ground, they shake, they roll, they feel themselves, they pet them around. They may run, they may bolt, they may scream, they may fight, whatever it is, they're coming out of this freeze where the biology has literally shut them down. And they need to make sure they're alive again. And once they can feel that they're alive, then they can bolt into action. They can use their mind again to think do I need to fight? Do I need to flee? How can I best process through this, right? So then you can think about those traumas. You can talk about them. But you really need to feel them and let your body do what it wasn't able to do at the time that you experienced the trauma, and all the times that you now continue to experience trauma and symptoms and pain and suffering and have to hold it in because there's people around, you're on a trail, you're walking in the woods, your family's there, your children are there, and you literally can't express what you're feeling. And your body's only response, especially to something like pain or anxiety, is to hold it in, to pretend you're fine. Pretending you're fine is freeze. Okay, so this is really important to understand. So again, go back and watch the video again and really understand what freeze is. You're frozen and we need to unfreeze it, right? We need to be able to express ourselves. That's why journaling is important, because you can't start crying or shaking or screaming or rolling around on the ground or any of these things in front of your children, your family, acquaintances, on a trail. But you can rage on the page, you can cry on the page, maybe you need to go be away somewhere. I mean, that's why people literally go to deserted islands. That's why people rent cabins on their own. That's why people, go to therapists, go to people to talk to, go to a safe place and a safe person so they can express what needs to be expressed. Because when you're holding it, you are continuing to stay in freeze and you're continuing to stay stuck. Okay, so moving your body in response to trauma, in response to stored freeze response or stored trauma, is something that you can do so we're not reacting. We're not forcing maybe crying or screaming or rolling around or doing anything like that, but movement is essential. It helps our body remind us that we're safe, and it helps us to get and feel unstuck. So what are other ways daily, other things that you can do every day to help your body stay unstuck? Well, sitting on the couch is not one of them, right? You're stuck there. Lying in bed is not one of them. You're stuck, right? Literally going for a walk, going for a run. This is ways that we're healthfully moving our body. We're just staying out of freeze. We're just reminding our body that we can run, we can flee, we can walk, we can get away, we can move. So walking is essential. Running is a great way. Dancing, right? Allowing our body to move, dancing. Yoga is great. You're moving, you're stretching, you're feeling into all those parts of your body. You're reminding your body that you're not dead, you're not stuck, you're biologically not frozen, okay? Because we're just reminding our body here that we're able to move, we're able to get away, we're able to escape, we're able to fight, we're able to move. So we need to do things that are showing us that we can fight and showing us that we can flee. So walking, running, yoga, many different things, dancing, laughing, moving, all kinds of different activities, sports, anything like that. That is very key and very important. Often when we're in the freeze response, meditation we find not helpful because we're sitting, we're forcing ourselves to sit against our will and breathe and breathe. So we're encouraging a freeze type moment. So just sitting and breathing isn't often great when you're in total lockdown freeze. Breathing is amazing. Breathing deep, long breaths. People who are frozen often hold their breath. They sit still, they play dead, they try to hide, and by hiding, they try to hold their breath and slow down their breathing. So taking big breaths, loud breaths, deep breaths, those are all very important, but movement, right? Yoga is better than meditating. Sitting still, you want to stretch, you want to move, you want to take those breaths, breathe, right? So again, we're not, a lot of times people say, sit down and meditate and breathe to calm down, right? Because we're in such a state, we're in such an angry state, we're overwhelmed, we're already crying, we're already screaming. Yoga, meditation and breathing will help us calm down, be still, calm us into that state. But if we're in that frozen state, sitting and barely breathing is only keeping us in freeze. We need to get up, move, walk, talk, breathe loud, show our body that we're still alive, we're here, we're able to cope with life, right? So do you see the difference there? Okay, let's just go through this one more time so you understand. When we're triggered, when we're really activated, a healthy nervous system, first of all, can go up and down, parasympathetic to sympathetic, right? We have to be able to adapt. So if you're triggered and you're super emotional, you're super charged, and you're yelling and you're screaming and you're worked up and you're super frustrated, and you can feel that like frustration like rising up in your body, that is not the time to go for a run. That is not the time to dance around and run around and explode, right? Like that, you're already worked up. You need to be able to bring that from the peak down. So that's when meditation, that's when staying calm, that's when breathing, slow, deep breathing, almost luring ourselves into a state of false sleep or calm, is bringing the nervous system back down. But when we're not reacting at all, when we're frozen, when we're not able to feel joy or emotion or respond, or we're dissociated from the world, or we're not able to feel or respond properly. We're saying, oh, I'm so angry. When we're not feeling that anger, we need to build ourselves up. So that's a great time to go for a walk, a run, to dance, to move, to scream, to just take some action where movement is involved. We're bringing your heart rate up. Deep breaths, deep, fast breaths, right? Loud breathing, things that are going to bring you up and out of that frozen response. So it's really important to notice, because your system is probably very dysregulated. It's easy for you to get worked up and not be able to calm down, and it's easy for you to be too frozen and not be able to work through those feelings. And in both cases, we need to be able to regulate and work with our nervous system. So today we're talking about freeze, but it's the same if you're in chronic flight or chronic fight. Right? If you're in chronic fight, then you need to find ways to calm down, right? That you can't stay in chronic fight forever. You can't stay in chronic freeze forever. And you can't stay in chronic flight forever. So people who are often anxious are in chronic flight. People who are often in chronic pain are in chronic fight. People who are just totally stuck are in freeze, right? So these are different ways, that these biological ways, and none of them are good to stay in long term. We have to be able to work with all of them. And basically, the reason why they exist, the sole reason why they exist, is to keep us safe and to keep us out of danger and to keep us alive. That is the goal. So while you're doing your exercises, while you're, whether you're calming yourself up or bringing yourself down in response to whatever you're stuck in, like whatever is happening with you, you need to remember safety is the key. So you want to feel safe doing these things. So if you're expressing your true feelings and you're crying or you're screaming or you're doing, you need to make sure that you are safe. You're in a safe place. You're with a safe person. This is a safe environment. Nothing bad can happen when you do this. You need to reinforce the safety. If you're feeling anger or whatever, you need to go out for a walk in a nice, bright, sunny place. You're safe. You don't want to go out into a dark alley and start running, right? That's only going to cause you more problems. You want to feel safe to express, to get out of freeze, or safe to sit down and be grounded in the world and be here in the present moment and calm down, right? You're not going to sit down and start to meditate in the middle of a war or in the middle of a battlefield. This isn't going to work. You need to get to safety first to be able to do these things. So safety is key as we're doing this. We want to feel safe to express, safe to move, right? Safe to unstuck ourselves. This video has gone on very long, so I just want to make sure that you understand it before I wrap it. Or if you're stuck in freeze and you're in an argument, you usually just don't speak up for yourself, or you're at a meeting with your boss and you usually don't say what's on your mind. You can practice safe ways in a safe environment. At home, you can start to practice, even in the mirror, looking in the mirror, just speaking up for yourself, saying what you think, saying what's true for you, speaking your truth. Right? That's a safe way to practice getting unstuck. Or, when you're angry, what is a safe way for you to feel your anger and to process through that, right? Going in a room. Maybe it is journaling, raging it out, throwing it away. That's a safe way. So we're going to do these, we're going to use our emotional muscles to get out of freeze, to get out of these responses by practicing with safety first and foremost in mind. We must feel safe as we allow ourselves through the body to get out of this, and then we can start to process through the trauma and the feelings and the emotions in our mind. But first we must allow our body to come back to itself, and then we can move forward and process. So I hope this video has been helpful. I know it's been long. Watch it again if you feel that you are completely stuck, and let's break out of the freeze response.